Got about 45 minutes of sleep last night.
All right. That's fun. That's real
Do
fun.
you want to see what that other little cat looks like? The mini cat? Yeah, the white kitty keeps like I'd be asleep finally, and then she was attacking it. Look how little this guy is. You see him?
That cat is cute. That cat is so
Yeah.
cute.
Isn't he cute? He's so little. Go potty, buddy. There, you're such a big guy. I know.
Hey, the good news is I just checked our audio. We're live on stream. Hey, what's up, everybody? Um, iron out some kinks. I just checked our stream audio on my phone, and everything sounds great. So,
Ooh. All right, let's start then.
actually, hold on.
Ah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Okay.
let's go. Let's go. Do it.
Alrighty. Good morning, Vikings fans. This is the Vikings Lions preview game or preview show. That's a good start. I'm your host, Joe Johnson, owner of PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com, PurpleTerritoryRadio.com, co-host of Morning Joe's, owner of 50 Stray Cats. Here with Mr. Kirby O'Connor.
That's me.
Hooray! He is the managing editor of Purple PTSD. He's also the host of the amazing show about the labor, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. And he is also the host of Vikings on the Clock around draft season. But we are here, man. I will admit before we get into some of the inactives and some other quick news and thoughts. I don't know how to feel about this game, to be completely honest with you guys. I saw about 50 people last night that know what I do for a living, and they were all asking me the same question. What are you thinking about tomorrow? And I genuinely do not know. I want to be optimistic. I want to keep riding the wave of positivity. But I still fear a regression to the mean from Mr. Kirk Cousins, especially considering his performance in the two road games the two division games that the Vikings have played on the road this season. Which were obviously not his best moments as a professional. So I don't really know. I'll tell you at the end of this what my prediction is, and it may not be. I don't know what the ratio of optimism to rationality that will be, but I have a strong feeling the Vikings will win this game and should win this game. I mean, how do you feel, man, about where we're at?
It's a hard one to feel like. It's a hard one to feel confident about because it's still an NFC North game. Like, I want to feel good, and I want to feel good, like knowing that the Lions give up a ton of um, yards and points. But
Yeah,
I will say I feel a lot more confident than some people who are posting about makeup calls for the Lions, like from the
yep,
Monday night game in Green Bay, because that's just not how NFL officiating works. It's not like an umpire in baseball where they give you a bad strike one call and they give you a good like
yeah.
ball three call. It's not like that at all. I think it'll come down
Or even
to
NBA refs will do that sometime in the same game, though, like not a week
yeah,
later against a different opponent.
yeah, and I think the officiating should be mediocre, which is about all you can hope for in the NFL.
Isn't that a testament to where the NFL's at with officiating right now, if that's what we're hoping for?
Is mediocrity. Yeah, I mean you
Yeah,
can't hope for good. So
I suppose that's a really good point. But at the same time, we're just hoping that they don't blow it. And but I will say that nothing would surprise me more if the Packers somehow screwed this game for the Vikings based on just everything. So I guess we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. But I mean, overall, I feel confident, which is like a hard, like it's a bad feeling to have before any Vikings game, because I felt
Yeah,
confident before the Bills game last year, and that was probably the last game that I felt truly like confident before. Um,
yeah.
like I felt kind of confident before the Raiders game, but still I was like waiting for the bottom to drop out, and I felt decently confident before the home opener, the season opener. Um, but definitely like
The the two biggest NFC championships in my lifetime that out of the four, or there's been five in my lifetime, but I don't remember the first one. That I felt confident about. I mean, I felt confident in '98, but I had this whole scenario in my head in 2000 that if we avoided the Bucks and the Rams, we'd be okay. And then we did, and we played the Giants with Kerry Collins, and I was like, we're gonna kill them that 41 to nothing. And then the Eagles with the Foles. We're playing a backup. I don't care if it's in Philly. I'd rather play them than X or the other two teams. And look how that ended up. So yeah, confidence is not a good thing.
confidence is never a good thing as a Vikings fan. It
Yeah,
just gets you into trouble. You should
totally.
you should always be ready for the heartbreak.
Yeah, man, and I've said this on a couple other shows. My girlfriend is like converting from being a Packers fan to a Vikings fan, which I really appreciate. Just because it's hard in your late 20s to do that, but also because the Packers are having a great year, and she's literally looked at me and said, being a Vikings fan is exhausting. It's like an emotional roller coaster all the time. Like you can never just find like a nice little level to get. I feel good this week. It's just it's ugh, ugh.
The best
Anyway,
the best I've ever felt being a Vikings fan was when there was a few years where like we were mediocre and I knew we were gonna finish like 8-8 or 7-9, and just every week was like, hey, if we play well, I'm gonna be happy, and if we play bad, it's fine because I don't really care about it. Like we aren't gonna make the playoffs
yeah,
and do anything. Like that
it's
was the
almost
best
like
I've ever
what
felt.
it's not dissimilar to the what we just said about the refs. Like we just want it to be right in the middle. Nothing too crazy for people to complain about. Nothing too atrocious. Atrocious. Like if yeah, with the Vikings, if they just hit aim low, shoot lower, I guess is the best way to put it. The inactives for this week, Cheryl, I think the biggest talker. I mean, Gideon's still out, um, but Cheryl's is a healthy scratch, which I find to be a little surprising. The word is that Mike Hughes will return punts, which should be fun to see. But Cheryl's obviously is the best punt returner in team history. He's an elite punt returner. I think they did miss him earlier in the year. Um, yeah, you saw a palpable difference, especially during the preseason. Preseason, obviously, but they were trying out different guys. Um, I haven't heard why they're doing that, like who the the switch was made for, but I'm sure we'll find out.
Was it
I get a little
was it a
worried about.
switch made to keep one of the linebackers active?
Maybe, but you would think with Gideon being out, they wouldn't have to do that.
Unless
But
Brothers Brothers back this week, and they're keeping.
yeah, he is. That's
Uh,
probably it. So yeah, and then they kept yeah. God, I don't know. I just Hughes is still a little fresh off that. I'm sure I mean he's been medically cleared. His brace is off, so on and so forth. But he's also I haven't seen him return punts myself. He was not around during the competition before Cheryl's returned, so we'll see. That's kind of a big stage for him to do that, and he's a young guy, and he's returning from it. And I do believe he did it in college, but still,
yeah,
that's
I
a
think he returned punts preseason last year, one or two. But I'm kind of surprised that we're seeing him. If we see him do punt returns instead of Olabisi Johnson, who did it in the preseason this year. Um,
yeah, that's a really good point. And BC showed that he could hold on to the ball because he got creamed on that one he didn't fair catch and held on to it somehow, probably because he immediately went into rigor mortis. But yeah, that's a good point, man. It's you think you would go with someone who was a more frequent, like more recently used to doing it, especially with like the different blocking schemes and everything that they do on returns, and that B isn't is so valuable and close from a catastrophic knee injury, I guess.
yeah, Keith Klein says, and use Abdullah or Hughes to be punt returner. everybody loves to bring up the fact that Abdullah has not returned punts since college.
Yeah,
Um, so, but again, I think between
and
me and
he's not
you,
sure. I worry about his ability to hold on to the ball. I mean, I think he's a little more dangerous than a lot of these guys.
mm-hmm,
He's a little more. He looks like he would be good at it just based
mm-hmm.
on the way that he runs, but he's quick and he's elusive, but he can't hold on to the ball. So
I've made the statement a few times on about the labor when Sean was on, but I would rather see if they don't have someone back there who can really create off the return. I would rather see them fair catch every single punt. Um, just because like I would rather that than risk any sort of turnover on a special teams play.
yeah, that's I agree with you. I like that take too. Um, the Cheryl's just to me, speaking of like no emotion and just not, have never worried about that. Um, he's just so sure-handed that I forget even who was before him, but I used to really always just have this gut feeling that we were gonna fumble, and since Cheryl's has been in there, I've not had that concern. So
Before
we'll see how
Cheryl's
it plays out.
yeah.
Who wa- who was it?
Sorry, we might tangent here. Before Cheryl's, did Harvin return punts or did you just do kicks?
I
Because you're
think he just
reaching
did
that far
kicks.
back.
Yeah, it's a ways, man. I think he might have done both initially, but then he just did kicks because he was always having migraines, and I think they wanted to limit that. But I could be completely wrong. I don't know. My memory, especially of that era, is a little sketchy. Um,
Well, we're glad
well,
you're mentally on top of it now. So,
clearly that long pause really was good for the confidence of my neurological team.
um, other
I saw an
sorry,
interesting
I was just
thing.
gonna
Oh,
say
other inactive?
other notable inactives. I can't wait. Drew Samia at some point in the season is not gonna be inactive, and I'm ready for it. But not today.
Are you? Where do you stand on the Samia situation? Either with people saying he should have replaced Elfline, or should replace Elfline, or that he should have been active by now, especially with Klein being gone.
I thought he probably should have been active last week, but um, but it didn't matter. Like I thought he should have been active just in case. I think Elfline is still the better option right now, just because he like mentally is like ready to play at an NFL level. Maybe not physically sometimes, but I think Sami is incredibly raw. But I'm excited to see him get some like reps eventually, maybe. But I'm really surprised he wasn't active last week, at least to be there for in case anybody went down. But we talked about it about the labor this week, or maybe we just talked about it internally. I don't remember. Um,
It was. I think it was on the show.
okay, yeah, we talked about how they just had Brett Jones as their only like interior like
Yeah,
backup that was active, and then Rashad Hill was backing up both tackles. So they're playing it a little fast and loose, I think, with the idea like nobody getting hurt, and I think they're
totally.
really relying on
I mean,
Elfline being able to slide over to the center position if God forbid Garrett Bradbury goes down for any amount of time. But like I can't really be mad about it because it hasn't affected them poorly yet. Like not
yeah,
poorly enough to lose games.
and
Well,
Brett Jones is inactive. Oli Udo's inactive, who everyone loved in the preseason. Um, trying to look at the Lions if there's anyone super.
not
Oh,
really.
Matt Stafford. I'm kidding.
Mike Daniels is inactive. That's the only one that's like somewhat big. But I don't know how much Daniels has even been playing this year. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't checked up on the Lions like actual games, so any claims
Yeah,
that I make are probably not don't hold water, other than
I'm
like
just
I
really
know their
excited about
stats.
CJ Anderson's has the chance for a breakout day. Inside joke. Um, one thing I saw when doing a little bit of show prep was that the Vikings have the third biggest uh percentage shift should they win or lose this game in regards to the odds of them making the playoffs this year. So if they lose the game, their odds of making the playoffs go down 24%. Um, maybe that's how it works. It doesn't matter. It's a 24-point swing, so I don't think it's a 24. It could go up or down. The only other teams ahead of them are Philly and Dallas. So if both those teams lose, especially Dallas, since they're in kind of rough shape, their chances will be pretty rough.
I mean, Philly's in rough shape too, especially with the schedule they have coming up in the next few games.
Yeah, and it's surprising that it's those teams. I know that they are at 500, but that division is terrible. So you think that their odds, I mean, at least one of them, I guess I don't really know the math behind it, but you think with the Giants and Washington being the other two teams that their odds wouldn't be that devastatingly. Like one of them was like a 40% swing. Um,
Well, but
but I mean,
that's kind of the nature of the NFL season, though, is that like since that division is close, every game could potentially mean those percentage points. But then again, like it doesn't by the end. Like
that's
every
it.
it levels itself out. So
So I don't know who came up with that equation or algorithm, but it must have been relatively complicated for that very reason. There's just, I mean, well, obviously it's going to be one team out of that division that makes the playoffs, and figuring out mathematically is insane, and also probably proof that we live in a simulation. But that's a topic for my other podcast, Tinfoil Hat with Joe. Um, a few keys to the game: running the ball and also passing the ball through the air. No, but running early and often, establishing the run game. Like you said, Mike Daniels isn't playing. That might help a little bit. The strength of the Lions is really its secondary. And outside of just the fact that they give up a ton of yards and establishing the type of game that Zimmer wants to establish on the ground, I think that running the ball and getting success there, since the Lions are bad against the run, will keep them a little more honest and not allow them to drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage, which they're going to want to do. I also think we should see a heavy dose of Mr. Madison. Which I think is helpful just in that, it as a change of pace guy, he seems to take advantage. He runs so damn hard that defenses really have to focus on him. They can't. He seems to pick up sneaky chunk yardage in each of these games so far this season. So,
he also,
uh,
for a change of pace back, he's incredibly polished, which is something that like I saw out of his college tape. Is like he's very patient still, and like he runs similar to Cook in that he runs like a professional running back. He's not just like a change of pace back who just like he's going to hit the hole that you tell him to hit every
yeah.
single time. Like he can still make a cut or two. Just to go off of like the fact that he runs so hard, he's still a very polished runner of the football.
Especially for a guy who's so young, and is still acclimating to the league. Like he was one of the steals of the draft. Like to get him in the third round. I know he played for a smaller school that's about a decade removed from when they were kind of like the fun team to focus on in college. But he had a ton of touches um, at Boise State, right? So like he was a top 10 guy yardage wise in the country. Um, but he wasn't as well known as other guys. But I think he while he might also be aging a little bit more. There's always that like rule of once a running back gets to X amount of touches in their career, regardless of their age, whether everyone says when they hit 30 they're done, but that's also kind of around the time that they hit. I forget what the benchmark is for the amount of touches on their career that they start to really start to slow down or break down. So that's always a concern, but he's what the Vikings have been really looking for in a legitimate change of pace guy or number two guy, like you said, Kirby. Like going back even to like Toby Gerhart, or I mean, you could say Latavius Murray, I guess, but he really played more as the lead feature back because of what was going on with Cook's injuries. So it's fun to see. And he's obviously going to be super valuable moving forward, especially with Dalvin Cook's injury history. But I've just been super psyched to see how well he's been doing. Um, and that'll set up obviously the play actions. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of what we've seen the last couple of weeks with Cousins a lot of play action, rollouts or bootlegs and naked bootlegs, stuff like that. I think they found that that's where Cousins is most comfortable. And if you want to kind of hear me and Kirby talk about that more in depth, we did on about the labor this week. That's on Vikings territory right now. Um, the second key is to really just focus on containing the outside receivers for the Lions. So Marvin Jones Jr. and Kenny Galladay. I don't. I guess it's some other sites that I was reading before the show. I don't have as much concern about that as other people do. I'm not as down on the starting corners for the Vikings as other people are. The article that I was kind of looking at about that was saying how what a roller coaster the season has been for Rhodes and Waynes, and they've played well in spurts, but they've been mostly bad. And it's like I just for a team, I get that. I don't know. It's just the defense seems to be doing so well. They're allowing less points per game than they did in 2017. I just think there's a lot of nitpicking going on. Sure, they could be playing better, and they have played better in their careers. Like that's not up for dispute. But I think as part of a whole, the defense is playing pretty damn well. And if they're giving up more yardage than they used to, or Rhodes was burned on that one touchdown by a rookie, God forbid. I'm not as down on them. I mean, there's every week there's an article about demoting or trading one of the other, and I say let the guys just keep going because again, as we talked about in the punt return scenario, Hughes is still new. He's looked good, but he hasn't. We had the amount of playtime that would make me confident to trade one of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Mackenzie Alexander seems to finally be coming into his own in the slot, which we could have said that last year as well. But I just don't like making change for the sake of change.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any and the key to containing like the outside receivers as much as anything is like getting to Stafford, getting like Griffin and Hunter in there so that they don't like Stafford can't set up and make like all of his reads that he needs to, which the Vikings have done exceptionally well in the past. I know Zimmer talked about earlier in the week. Somebody asked him a question about Detroit's improved offensive line. And he kind of smirked about it and was like, "I think we match up well with them," or something to that effect. So I don't think he's too worried about that. But just as much on that and talking about the cornerbacks is like they've also been playing with a hurt Anthony Harris, which hasn't helped at all.
Mm,
Because like I think
yeah,
on a few of those ones, especially the one where Rhodes got burned in New York. Harris
yep,
was supposed to have coverage over the top, and neither of them got there. And
yeah.
Harris just hasn't looked great with his quad injury. He's looked super slow. But
And that's funny you say that because one of the articles I grabbed that from was talking about getting help from the elite. Uh, Obviously Harrison Smith, and then how elite Harris has been playing, and he was a breakout player last year, but yeah, he hasn't, and he had that.
he grades super well on Pro Football Focus, but I don't know why exactly. I think that system is a little bit broken at times, especially with defensive backs.
Yeah, and a big part of the containing those guys. I mean, they're good at contested catches, but both Rhodes and Waynes have 3 to 4 inches on Hughes and Mac. So having bigger guys out there for those guys who are I think 6'4" and like 6'3" in Galladay and Marvin Jones is kind of why we drafted them in the first place. Not specifically for those guys, but Zimmer wanted long corners for our division. Um, Another a good key I think that ties into last week is not letting up when the Vikings should get out to an early lead, a significant lead. We saw that last week. We've seen that throughout Vikings history that they can have a 21-point first quarter, and then all of a sudden they slow down and they slowly let the other team creep back, and then it goes down to a final drive, and somehow Brett Favre comes out of retirement and throws a 100-yard touchdown. Jimmy Hitchcock spontaneously combusts. Um, I would like to see that. I think there's a lot of potential for that. I predicted a pretty tight game just because of the history of these teams. Zimmer has lost by 2 points, I think, in 2014 and 2016. There were the Vikings in 2016 lost by 3 points, 16-13, and then 16-14 in 2014. There's also been a couple other games in their recent history that's been decided by a touchdown or less. So I predicted a tight game on the road, but the Vikings have also won 3 of the last 4 in Detroit. And as we've mentioned, there's the Lions give up a ton of yards. I think they're like 29th, 28th in yards in
Yeah,
passing and running. So I could see a lot of points being scored, especially with the Vikings having a really good percentage of scoring touchdowns in the red
in
zone
yeah.
last couple weeks.
Interestingly enough, like the Lions give up a ton of yards, but they only have given up like 11 touchdowns total.
Yeah,
So
like bend don't break.
yeah, which is like really good compared to all of the other teams that are at the bottom of the barrel as far as scoring yards. But like you say, the Vikings have had not really had too hard of a time scoring in the red zone unless Kirk Cousins throws an interception, which please don't happen again.
Ugh. I instantly got heartburn when you said that. Um, let's go since the kickoff is in 5 minutes. They say even though it'll probably be in 15, and since we're both watching on Hulu, that means we'll get to see kickoff tomorrow around 7:30 p.m.
Joe Oberly
Um,
will just fill us in the live
on
chat,
the
like
live chat.
what's happening.
Um, pick a reason why you think the Vikings will win and what your score prediction will be. I'll let you go first.
Thank you. The Vikings will win because Dalvin Cook goes for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Ooh.
And score prediction based off of that, 28-17.
Okay. I think the Vikings are going to win because I think they've discovered a recipe for success with Cousins, and while I don't think he's going to continue at the rate he's been the last couple weeks, I think that he's going to find a happy medium that will kind of validate something I've always said, which good for me, is that he can be an elite quarterback if he's an elite system quarterback. That's kind of a misnomer, I guess, or an oxymoron. An elite game manager would be another way to put it. I think he can put up a lot of numbers, mainly not because there's just a tremendous amount of talent on this Vikings offense, on the team in general, but in offense. So if you get a guy who can run the system the right way and just execute, they can put up staggering numbers. And I think that uh, today's game will be the first game in the new Kirk Cousins that we're going to see. The last couple games, I don't think it's sustainable. It'd be amazing if it was, but I think we're going to see where he's going to be for the most part moving forward. And my prediction on Morning Joe's, I think, was 24-21. I'm going to amend that and say it'll be, oh man, I'm thinking 31-17 Vikings. I think they're gonna come out ready to play, and I'm
You got more
excited for it.
confident.
I know, man. You made me more confident. Usually, when I talk to other human beings, I get incredibly, incredibly unconfident. But look at that. We will be back at halftime and after the show to do some updates. And moving forward, this is the way we're going to be doing things, and we might even do some more shows during the week. So stay tuned for that. And Skull Vikes. Join us on our live chat too. We're gonna have a live chat on both Vikings territory and Purple PTSD here in about 5 minutes. So hopefully you people will log in. You don't have to create an account if you want to. It's $5,000. I'm kidding. It's free and it's takes like 2 seconds. You can just use your Facebook or Twitter to create an account. So we'll see you there and let's go.
Skull, baby, let's do it.